These are the beautiful Caucasus Mountains, the gateway from Europe to Asia. But the mist-shrouded peaks may well hide a secret. Could man's closest relative be lurking here?
So, you're looking forward to your first CFZ expedition?
Very much so, yeah. I've been looking forward to it for years actually. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Ideal location to go as well for the first one. Not too far away, but it'd be nice to get in something on a bit of fresh air in it.
So, any thoughts on the almasty?
Well, I very much hope we see him. Obviously, we get evidence of him, but I very much hope we see him. And take samples if we can.
Chris, you're an old lag on them, ain't you?
Yeah, it's me again, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's your neck of the woods though, isn't it? Sort of Central Asia.
Well, it's not Central Asia either. That's Afghanistan and Uzbekistan. This is somewhere completely new to me. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the whole thing.
Brilliant.
This is the most important one we've done.
Yeah, well, we've got the old prompt on board.
Yeah, we got
which is feathering our caps, isn't it?
We've got the best staff, the best equipped, the best backed.
Oh, Adam, we've always wanted to do an expedition with you, and now here we are at last. I think it's surprising it's took us so long to get together, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, but now we're finally together, and I'm really looking forward to it. It should be excellent.
Brilliant. And you've hunted the almasty before, haven't you?
Yeah, I've hunted the elmas in Mongolia, and I saw what really fascinated me about it was a number of really credible eyewitness reports. So, from what I know about the Caucasian mountains and the research that Gregory's done, there seems to be an even more viable population. And if anything, according to what I'm told, they're on the increase, whereas in Mongolia, I really thought they were on the point of extinction. So, to actually capture an image of one should be fantastic.
Keith, your first expedition for a bit, isn't it, mate?
It is, yeah, 7 years.
Good to be back in the fold?
Yeah, definitely. Make it a successful one.
Sumatra was your last one, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, 2001.
Fantastic place, Sumatra.
It is. I'm sure Russia will be a lot better.
So, what's the most you think you can expect right now? If you had a crystal ball and you were looking back on your 3 weeks, what do you think you'll find?
Maybe some hair, maybe some prints. Gregory says there is a village that has teeth, but they may well be some bear teeth. I remember I went to Thailand where I was told a remote village had part of a skeleton of a naga, which is a 60-foot snake. It turned out to be an Indian elephant's molar tooth. So, who knows? It would be fantastic to see one and get it on film.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
All human beings belong to a single species and are descended from a common stock. They are born equal in dignity and rights, and all form an integral part of humanity.
This is one of the most important pieces of human rights legislation in the world, and has been for 30 years. But what if the first sentence, at any rate, was just wrong? Completely and utterly wrong? What if it turned out that we were not the only species of the genus Homo on this planet? What would happen to the world then? In early August 2008, war broke out between Russia and the former Soviet Republic of Georgia. Until the war, not 1 in 100 people would be likely to be able to tell you much about the Caucasus Mountains, a massive mountain range between Asia and Europe. But then, suddenly, because of the human tragedy of the events in South Ossetia, the eyes of the world were turned upon this area that before nobody would have ever heard of. It's ironic, really, because just 3 weeks before we had returned from the tiny Russian Republic of Kabardino-Balkaria, where we were in search of an apeman. All across what used to be Soviet Central Asia, from the Caucasus in the west to Mongolia in the east, there are tales of the almas or almasty, a naked wild man, hairier and stockier than modern man, with only the most primitive tools and no knowledge of fire. The almas has intrigued us for years.
I'm Grigory Panchenko, cryptozoologist from Ukraine, Russia, Germany. I work on Caucasus. My main topic is almasty, Caucasian snowman. Okay?
We first met Gregory when he was our special guest at the 2007 Weird Weekend, the annual conference of the Centre for Fortean Zoology here in North Devon. We were fascinated by what he had to say about his research into the almasty in various parts of the Caucasus, and so we decided to accept his kind offer to collaborate with us on a full-scale investigation. When the 5-man CFZ team arrived at Mineralivodi Airport, Gregory, together with his friend Alexei, an archaeologist, and Alexei's dog Homo, were there waiting for them. After dealing with some boring but necessary administrative tasks, Alexei and Gregory drove us up to a range of mountains known as the Stepmother's Teeth. Here, the boys from the CFZ met up with Anatoly, another archaeologist who was to complete the team. They set up camp, but soon discovered that their canvas homes away from home were set up in the middle of a graveyard. Once upon a time there were a people called the Sarmatians. They were of Iranian origin and migrated from Central Asia to the Ural Mountains around about 5th century BC and eventually settled in most of southern European Russia, the Ukraine and the Eastern Balkans. They were fierce warriors and notable bowmen. The bodies here are of Sarmatians who died between 12 and 1800 years ago, and their bones are everywhere.
So, first of all, we think that is a floor of a tomb. So maybe tomb is ruined, and maybe tomb is empty, was empty many hundred years ago, but not ruined. So someone creature may use it as a cave for to stay, or if sick and low, to die. And we begin to work with that. And then we understand that that's a slave from this part, but the roof falls. Here is his mistress. When we found it, here is his leg and his arm. This skull was here. When we have found it...
It's a slave and his mistress?
Yes, because there are women's scenes, not men's, but a rather young person with rather bad teeth, and first of all he laid under the tomb.
How old were these, do you know?
I don't know, grown up but rather young.
No, how old is the grave?
About 5th century of our age.
Is that AD?
Yes.
Okay. However, some of the skulls were a peculiar domed shape. Now, we'd all heard the stories of the Yeti of Central Asia, which is supposed to be a hulking 7-foot creature with a large, high domed head. We'd even been told that the almasty too has a domed head. So could these skulls have actually been proof of the almasty here only on our second day of the expedition? Sadly, probably not. These were probably the skulls of the slave caste of the Sarmatians. The domed heads were probably caused by the skulls having been bound into a peculiar shape during childhood. However, there are long-lost legends that the Sarmatians did have hulking beast men as their slaves. So, you never know. We took some samples and moved on.
Right, and this is where we've got to go tomorrow.
The mountains were riddled with small caves. A few days before we arrived, Gregory had been exploring one of the caves and found some shards of what looked like human bone. It looked like a human skull, but it was much thicker. Could this have been the bones of an almasty?
It's not that one, it's another one around that area. It's an interesting looking one there, but it looks a bit inaccessible.
If you get up at first sort of light cools, just have a look around here, like some things will
It was imperative that the team explore these caves, but it took them most of the day to get there, and the big problem was that none of the brave boys from the CFZ had any mountaineering experience whatsoever.
That is too dangerous to try and get up.
That's absolutely possible. Yeah, for things, but not for Gregory. Not Gregory the Lynx.
Maybe even for me, but
It's getting a bit windy as well, so I don't fancy going up there, certainly.
maybe for Alexei, I know.
And the wind's getting up.
And the wind's going up. If you do that,
I don't feel safe here, let alone up there.
yeah, you're taking a big risk. No, if we had a rope and some
Cave here, and Totally just spotted it. We're going to have a bit of a closer look. It's quite a small one. Has anybody got a head torch with them or anything?
Yeah.
Might be an idea, because this is not one of the big caves we're going up to get to at the top of the mountain. This is just a little one on the route, but it's interesting. I don't think it's really big enough for almasty. Shows signs that humans have been here. Yeah. Look, you even get litter halfway from the mountain in the Caucasus. Like we've got a good on Tuji, there's even litter there. The only thing I can see so far is human habitation.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe shepherds.
There's a bottle in there.
Well, they may not have found the almasty in there, but they did find something rather peculiar.
This is a very bizarre looking slug that we found underneath an old log. Never seen one quite like it with a crest on its back. Anatoly says it's edible. I'll take his word for it. Hang on, I'm just filming a very strange slug.
Now there's a line you don't hear every day.
Here we are, on top of White Stone Mountain. And this is the cave where the almasty dung might be.
We've made it to the almasty cave now. Dave and I have just been sifting through the straw there. Do you want to show them, Dave? Basically what we've been looking for. Gregory reckons that when he first came here he found what he thought might be an almasty nest. So we've just been having a quick look for any hair samples. What did you see here?
I have seen this old grass weighing here. Rather accurately nest.
Yeah.
For good enough for size. For example, for me, if I am weighing so,
Yeah.
not straight, I was staying and looking for a long time, trying to find any place in which there are footprints, and in the first seconds I have seen an excrement.
You saw the excrement here? Under your hat? Where your hat was. Just move your hat. Just move his hat, will you, Dave? So that's where you say you saw excrement?
Yes.
And you think that might be almasty? Maybe.
It seems to me that maybe almasty, they like human, not bears. They will like. I take this stick, I take a pack, and without touching a finger with a stick, take all excrement in a pack. And near excrement there was a small part of a bone. After that I began during an hour trying to find any hair in this grass, but I was unsuccessful.
Where did you find the bones?
I have after I have not seen any footprint and any hair. I have forgotten this, and take first of all I take this grass over put here, and then I take that's maybe not not this excrement. There are some here was excrements maybe of fox or jackal over here. And I take all the ground for the stone from this during 2 hours maybe. First party of bones I have found it here, on such under the ground, and the second part, yes, there were parts of small lamb and a bird. Maybe that was a domestic hen, maybe that was uar, a wild trunk or trunky. So it lives in these rocks.
So why do you think that this might be almasty bones, Gregory?
I think that it's possible, because there is a good place to have a rest, to stay for a man during the night, for a masty, for example, for a day, and if the creature is sick, old, to die.
Last question. Is this where you found the skull samples, or did you find them somewhere else? The skull? Yeah.
No.
That was somewhere else.
No. These parts of skulls were found even not here, even not near Sarmatian tombs. Yes.
A long way away, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
That's bows, part of a cow's.
Cow?
Yes.
Tuslik. Mouse?
Not mouse.
Fox?
Rodent type.
Sussex, of which there are several species, are European ground squirrels which are found all across Eastern Europe and Russia. In the same way as that it has been hypothesized that marmots and other small rodents may provide some of the food for the yeti, it has been suggested that Sussex may be a major food source for the almasty.
Maybe from sheep, maybe from a little calf.
Oh yeah, so it's not. It's definitely not almasty.
And they don't look.
No, they don't.
all,
Look at that. That's a jawbone.
Quite thick and all the bones.
No, they're not almasty.
Oh, stop.
But we've got the bones that we need anyway.
Pick something up there. You might have been there. Yeah.
The team wondered whether this would be a decent place to set up one of their tricker cameras, a remote-controlled device operated by infrared, which might, just might, net us a picture of an almasty.
For your judgment, but would I set one up? Right now, my opinion is no, because I think it's so disturbed.
Yeah.
It's been disturbed by Gregory for hours. Yeah, when he went through it all, got the bones, got the scat, and it's just been disturbed by us as well. I think that if an almasty was here, especially as it's warm weather, this is one of the last places it will come now. I personally think it's better trying somewhere else. I desperately want to set one up, but that's just my feeling. But I'll respect your judgment on it. If you still want to do it, we'll do it. We'll do what you want.
We don't know what the ones like around here are like either, do we?
Yeah, so, but exactly. So my personal feeling is no for this cave. Richard, what about you?
Wow. I think it'd be unlikely that the creature would be coming back here after such heavy disturbance, but we have got another set of caves to look at.
Try them in a fresh cave.
Yeah.
Just film me as well. I just want to say something about this. What's also important, sometimes there'll be people watching this who are real experts in this. I know we don't have a proper scent control system, but you've got to remember we do this on our own time and money, and we've got to be quite quick in the locations that we're getting. So we are setting up camera traps, we are coming back to them. We're not scent controlling it, I understand that, but we're doing the best we can with the equipment we've got, the money we've got, and the time we've got. So we've still got a good chance, but not in this cave.
For my money, I think the best place for a camera trap is going to be one of these old abandoned buildings if we can get to them. I've heard loads of stories about almasties hanging around. I don't know what the attraction is, but they seem to like them. Maybe associate them with food or something.
Well, we've still got it. We'll push him to go and do one of those.
Yeah.
When we get back to camp tonight, we'll have a talk to him about what's the plan for the next 2 days while we're here.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do that when we get down to the bottom, though. Yeah.
But after some of the most gruelling climbing that the team had ever experienced, individually or collectively, they finally reached the place where Gregory had found the bone.
It might be an almasty bone.
No, it's not almasty. It's
No, but the bone that we found.
yes, I have found in the same day, but maybe that's cold.
Now that, just what he's explaining is, that isn't obviously he's not an almasty bone, yeah?
Sure.
He's using that as a prop, because what he's doing is explaining that that's where he found it, yeah?
Yeah. So someone brought it up here.
Well, it could have been died sleeping there, yeah? You don't know.
Well, if it's one bone on its own,
Yeah.
more likely something's brought it
Could
on.
be scavenged, yeah, that's
Could have
true.
been brought by a lammergeier or something.
Yeah.
The lammergeier, or bearded vulture, with a wingspan of over 9 foot, is the largest and one of the rarest raptors in Europe, and it's not at all inconceivable that it could have been the vector to get this surprisingly large bone up into such an inaccessible place. But some of the bones that we found that day could not have been brought there by a lammergeier. Could they have been the work of the almasty?
This is a sheep's skull in a crevice in a rock, and it would have been very hard for it to get there, even being washed by rainwater, because the crevices are so small that they wouldn't admit something as large as that sheep's skull higher up. Equally, if it was dropped by a lammergeier, it's very unlikely it would have ended up here. It looks like it's been deliberately put there. Whether it was put there by a man or an almasty, here's the $60,000 question. I'll get some film of it from further away so you can get a better scope of what we're talking about.
And eventually the team found a suitable location for the tricker cameras.
You need to wedge it somewhere else.
Well, we're going to have a look to see where the best place is.
It was near a natural walkway, a place where animals and humans over years had flattened the grass.
See where the run's on. Because it's coming in on a... It has to come in on a run now.
You can come down, mate.
It can come down and it can come in.
You can come up, yeah.
Maybe that crevice there.
No, wait a minute. Let me just have a look up here.
You want to live here?
Yeah, we'll leave it over a couple of nights.
2 nights.
2 nights.
2 nights.
We should also put some here.
But you
Big
won't
films
capture
of working up there. You won't get it.
what rock?
On this big rock up there. Anything that stands in this area, to take a picture of, won't it?
Yeah.
Don't you think that that place
Yes, that's
is
always
better?
no.
The only thing it won't take is if the animal comes down from the top, you just get the back of it, but you might get the side of it if it goes down.
No, that place isn't better, Gregory. No. Come here, Dave.
And they finally settled on the exact locations for the trigger cameras and went back to camp.
Mint.
That's for
Mint. Oh, lovely.
For pretty well every meal while they were out in the field, the team would eat kasha. Kasha is a catch-all term for a buckwheat porridge with meat and rice added, plus whatever else they could find lying around, like this wild mint, which Richard enthused over for months. The shared experience of living under canvas under relatively primitive conditions is a great team builder, and it wasn't long before the two groups of explorers from two totally different countries were one wonderful cohesive whole. While dinner was being prepared, Richard thought of an absolutely appalling pun, and so he snuck off with a video camera to try and film inside a Sarmatian tomb. He was determined to get the line 101 Sarmatians into this film. As you can see, his video work was not the most impressive that he has ever done. But it's a great pun, and anything which takes the mickey out of Walt Disney Corporation has got to be a good thing. And after dinner, over a few vodkas in the tent, the team bonded even further.
There you go. We're friends. And as the vodka is always done in one, how is it, Keith?
Хорошо, рассказываем про.
Nice aftertaste.
Okay.
Про Wildman, да?
It's very pleasant. Very pleasant.
Хорошо. Мы искали алмасты 4 года.
There was after 4 this expedition.
And once he'd loosened up enough to trust us, Anatoly told us about his own encounter with the almasty. It had happened back in the 1980s. He was staking out an abandoned farmhouse near Neutrino. From a hiding place he saw a specimen pass by it only 4 meters away. It was under 2 meters tall, powerfully built. It had grey hair, the colour of a poplar tree's bark. Its head was domed with a sagittal crest, and its nose was human-like, but smaller. It had no chin and a thick, short neck, and it swung its long arms as it walked. Anatoly had also seen a giant snake in a cave in the south of Kabardino-Balk area, near a town called Samakavoko. He was being lowered down into the cave when he saw a black snake that he estimated to be 7 meters long, swimming away in the water that filled the cave. His father had also seen such a monster snake many years before in Kazakhstan. Whilst in a marsh, he saw what at first he thought was a man. As he grew closer, he thought that the tall, dark object was part of a dead tree. Then he realized that it was a huge snake, rearing up like a cobra.
These are some of the plants that the almasty will eat.
Это можешь даже ты есть.
Even men can eat that, especially that. Like a carrot.
Like a carrot?
Like a carrot?
Well, let's...
I've tried some of the plant that grows in the Gobi Desert. What's it called?
Of course, that's much better when it's more young, but we can eat. Of course, not really like a carrot.
The thing from the Gobi tasted a bit like banana crossed with celery. What's it called that grows on the roots of the Saxon?
It's the Goyo.
The Goyo plant, that's what I was trying to remember. Did you try any?
Yeah, I tried.
Delicious, isn't it?
I got they actually have it in the Gobi, they actually have a liqueur that you can take out.
If you...
Here, Rich, I'll try it. гадость, но есть можно.
He said that's not very good, but it's possible.
It's a little tasteless, but
When
Celery, a cross between celery and grass, really.
The next morning they went back to where they'd left the trigger cameras.
I film this. You just press record. It's already on. Yeah.
It was a long, slow journey up to the mountains. We stopped at every cave, and every cave had to be investigated, and every cave had to be investigated with as much scientific rigour as possible.
Fibre. It's fibre, not hair. Just fibres, not hair. Oh, knock it off if you like, mate.
very dark,
We're halfway up a wooded mountain. I haven't been able to film us climbing up here because the going's too steep. Here we are. Very slippy, very muddy. Looking for almasty hair on trees and other things.
That's the words pack content. You put it in mind.
We looked in some caves, but they were way too shallow really for an almasty to go in. The only thing there was badger scat. There are scratch marks on this tree which look like they may have been done by nails rather than claws. Anatoly says they're too low down to be a bear. Anatoly has just found what just might be, the hair of an almasty. It's the right sort of size, shape and colour. We're just recording it before we take it in a sample bag very carefully. Now, even if this turns out to be something innocuous, we're doing what we should be doing.
Yeah. One of these one day will be the one.
Alright, we're going back up to White Rock to pick up the camera trap that was set a couple of days ago in the hope that it's caught something. 6 shots on the camera trap. They might have been birds, they might have been rodents, they might have been bears, they might have been the almasty. We don't know till we have a look, but it's very exciting, very interesting, and it makes that bloody awful climb up here worthwhile. And there was a slight strange smell. I smelt it too. Don't know what it was. We can but see. Fingers crossed.
Hello. Went up today to retrieve the trip camera that we set up 48 hours ago, but unfortunately when we viewed the pictures when we came back down on the computer, they just came up as sunrise and sunset shots. No almasty shots whatsoever, or even wildlife animals, bears or jackals or lynx even. We will be resetting them again at other locations. Hopefully we'll have a better luck next time we set them off.
But they did find some droppings. But the droppings belonged to a bear.
you see birds and...
These are the bones from the cave.
Can I put these together?
That are from the other place,
Alright,
where leaves were. You see birds, bones.
Now, which of the bones do you think maybe from the almasty?
Of course, that are not bones.
No, that's too small. That's just the creature's food. No. Dave's just caught this European green lizard under our tent. It's a beauty.
He's been in the battles with other males, but there's scars on his head.
A lovely colour, isn't he?
It is.
It's my favourite colour, green. You get them in Britain, yeah?
In certain place, yeah, down in Dorset.
Yeah. We were writing about that ages ago, and it was universally sneered at, and then they found them.
I've seen the wall lizards down at Portland, one of Portland. It's lovely. Town and railroad.
Our collection of specimens and samples was growing.
5th century. These from the Salmation people. That's incredible. These from a noble person, rich person.
It's
Glass.
What do you think the metals? What the metal is?
Pasta, electron, bronze.
What did you say that one was again?
Pasta.
Plaster.
Artificial material.
And these little orange ones. Sardonyx.
And nifrit. Maybe.
Which one of these is which? Which is from where?
This one's from the tomb.
Yeah.
And this one is what they said was the slave, shallow grave one, possibly originating from northern Iran. And the marked difference is a big difference in the shape of the skull, where that slopes right back. Straight right.
Yeah.
And the one from the tomb is a much higher, normal head, forehead, more human.
Now,
as we know, wouldn't they, to look at.
Yeah, is that due to binding, do we know, or is it just a natural feature?
I don't know, if they were the slaves, I doubt they would read the red binding. And also, it might be because it's not noticeable. You can't see the join on the front of the human one. Yes, you can. There's a real difference in the shape of the head. It's got a much lower forehead than the bottom one.
They're both. That's clearly not almasty, the lower one though. It's an odd human. It hasn't got the thickness or the brow ridge.
Hasn't got a brow ridge.
But it was time for the next stage of the expedition, the long journey down to the borders with Georgia and Mount Elbrus, the highest mountain in Europe.
Yesterday we went into town, Dave and I went into town to speak to an eyewitness who said that he'd seen an almasty body. What did he see?
I went to the mountains. Sometimes I want to go to mountains alone, and suddenly I saw this. It was a woman, a female.
How does he know it was? What was it? What did he see? I want him to describe it to me.
Вы можете описать вот то, что вы увидели? first of all, he began to describe the body and then the situation. About the body, he said that her head was more long than men's.
Was more what? Say that again. Her head was more
long. Yes.
like a cone.
Что вот так как он показывает переострённый.
Почти так вот, примерно такое.
Похоже, вот он изобразил руками. Похоже на то, что...
Like a cone.
Oh, excuse me. Like your show.
Yeah, like a cone. Okay. And the body. Want him to describe the body.
First of all, a situation. The body was laying under the large stone rock near it, and was half covered.
Half covered by what?
By this
By
stone.
the stone.
Yes. Ну вот, а теперь напишите face down.
Face down like that.
Да, вот.
Что-то от 5 до 7 или 1,5 сантиметра.
Миллиметров, наверное, диаметр, да?
Диаметром, да.
Ага.
Диаметром миллиметров.
Миллиметр, да, диаметр миллиметр.
Okay, not face down, but
On its side, yeah?
on the side. A part of it was, upper part was under the stone.
He gave a very detailed and specific story. It sounds, on the face of it, plausible. He certainly, I tried to trip him up, for example, asking him if the body had a tail.
Right.
I asked him to go back and cross-reference his detail, and I challenged him a little bit on his evidence. It's difficult in this sort of case to say, is he definitely telling the truth or not?
Here we are, big crevasse, shit road, no seat belts.
The witness, an elderly man called Sergit, claimed to have found the body of a female almasty back in 1996. It had been crushed under a rockfall on a mountain known as Kashkatash.
Hopefully we're on our way to Elborus to investigate the supposed almasty corpse and see if there's anything of it left, if we get there in one piece.
He had retrieved a tooth that he had given to a friend. Sergit said that he could lead us to the place in question, and Adam seemed convinced that he was telling the truth.
Oh dear, look at that rubbish. Looking at all that rubbish.
After days in the wilderness, it seemed strange to be back in civilization. We were in Elborus National Park, but an area of the park which had obviously been set aside for some level of tourist development and was catering to people on hiking holidays. There was a little shop that sold sweets and even a liquor store. There were well laid out paths and even chalets where you could stay. Not quite what the gallant boys of the CFZ had come to expect from their expeditions.
So we're off with the eyewitness and his lovely daughter to look for the bones, teeth of the almasty that we rather hope is still up there. Of course, this is just the campsite below the mountain, and there'll be quite a climb up to where the creature, or rather the creature's remains, supposedly still lie, with a bit of luck, if they haven't been shifted by the work of rain and snow, other natural forces. The trail's getting a little higher now, and nothing like the savage of the white rock. Global warming in action. All of that used to be under ice, apparently.
Sorry?
From down those rocks there right up to where the ice begins, one time it was all underwater. Sorry, Under ice. Yeah.
They were only a few thousand feet from the body site when disaster struck. In Richard's own words, "The path disintegrated and the way grew ever more treacherous and steep. In such situations a group should stick together, but that's exactly what didn't happen. Some forged on ahead while others lagged behind. We were led across a field of ice and snow that sat atop jagged boulders. Chris managed to walk across it, but I'm twice his weight. My leg went through the ice and I lost balance. In a flash I was sliding on my belly down the steep ice sheet towards spiky boulders 300 feet below. I swung my body around and jammed my boots onto the rocky outcrops at the side of the scree pile that I'd been walking on prior to venturing on the ice. This stopped me after about 30 feet instead of the 300, which would have ended in a sticky splat."
Right, the others are up this mountain and they're in conditions that need mountaineering gear and they haven't got any. I am so glad that I didn't go with them. Let's try and focus in on them. They're so far away I can hardly see them. There's Omra, Gregory, I think that's Anatoly, might be, oh yeah, that's, I think, Adam. There's Lexi. This is taken on extreme zoom from a couple of thousand feet down the mountain. They're doing something, like I said before, that requires mountaineering gear and they haven't got any. This is just plain daft. This is beyond this expedition's capabilities. Someone's going to get hurt unless we're not very careful. Right, it's the second day up the mountain where the almasty remains are alleged to be. Today was much better getting up. We did it at a more sedate pace and we all stayed together. But after a certain height I started to get what I think is altitude sickness, vertigo, swimming head, blacking out, the legs like jelly. So I got to within about 200 yards where this thing is supposed to be and I realised if I went any higher I was going to be in trouble and I was going to fall off the bloody mountain. So I'm sitting here waiting for the others. They've got a camera, they're filming what's going on, but annoying, but I'd rather not risk it because I felt bloody awful. Anyway, let's have a look at this glacier, it's quite lovely. Isn't that beautiful? Every so often you hear a sort of ominous rumble as a little rock fall and the glacier recedes thanks to global warming.
Okay, you're all in frame, so...
Fantastic. Right, first of all, I'd like to ask this gentleman what his name is.
One old man called Bahua Tilov had seen almasties on several occasions since the 1970s. The first time was whilst he was working in irrigation near Neutrino. He saw a large black almasty with two smaller grey-coloured ones sitting amongst the rocks. As he approached, the trio of beasts retreated. On another occasion, he was with two German tourists when they saw a large male almasty walking into an abandoned house. It turned and scowled at them. The Germans were too afraid to take pictures or follow it into the house. More recently, he had seen a family group of them. He tried speaking to them, but they fled back into the forest. The next day, Dave and Sergit went up the mountain for the third time, and the rest of us went into town, where we had heard that there was an almasty eyewitness. But first, we went to the museum.
This is a museum of Bulgarian fauna, although it seems to me more of a museum of hunting and badly stuffing animals.
Что?
This brown bear has been so badly stuffed, it's been deliberately stuffed to look savage, baring its teeth and raking with the claws. Atrociously badly stuffed there. It looks like an outsized teddy.
It has to hold it as a collective bottle.
Traditional.
Is it not a natural pose for a bear?
Traditional Russian for drinking vodka.
Okay, Gregory, could you ask him what his name is?
Они хотят, чтобы на камеру сказали свое имя. Чтобы им для камеры сказали имя.
After leaving the museum, we headed for Elbrus village, where we were to interview an elderly man who had told Gregory that he had seen an almasty in his youth. However, when we interviewed the man, who was 85, his story had changed. He said that it had been his father who had seen the almasty at the age of 14. This would have put the event sometime in the 1890s. The old man recounted what his father had told him. It had been around noon, and he had opened a door into a room in a part of the house where the ceiling had collapsed. He saw a young almasty sitting in a chair. It seemed to be basking in the rays of the sun that fell through the roof. It was covered with hair. The hair on the face was reddish. It had long, fine hair on its head. The eyes were red, but the old man thought his father had meant red veined rather than glowing red. The creature threw its head forward, and the long hair fell in front of its face. The witness quickly shut the door and retreated. The old man also said that his father had seen a big snake near the house that the man currently lives in. It was back in 1964. His horse had reared up, and he saw a grey-green snake 4 meters long and as thick as his arm.
You can make mineral water from a snow and glacier.
Snow and what?
From glacier.
Oh, glacier.
Snow.
It tastes really nice.
Yes.
It tastes really nice. It tastes
Mineral from
It
glacier.
tastes like, like bottled stuff. It's lovely.
This is some sort of Bulgarian drink.
Iran.
Rich Johnson.
Cheers, mate. What did you say?
It sounded like Iran.
Yes.
Iran.
Iran. It's very like yogurt, only thinner. It's tastier than the stuff from Mongolia.
I think it's tasty.
Yeah.
It's creamier, isn't it?
Я знаю, я им расскажу.
Yeah, it's like a liquid yogurt. It's very nice. Very nice. Very nice. Placebo.
На здоровье. Okay, we're going to start now. We'll start with the questions. You start by saying, what is your name and how old are you?
Later that day, the team talked to a man of about 30 years old. His name was Tahir, and he was the vice president of Elbrus National Park and a doctor of geographical science. He told us that 3 years before, whilst hunting for some lost sheep, he'd encountered a big almasty. He'd been walking through a sparsely wooded area at twilight when he saw what he thought was a cow lying down. Then the cow stood up, revealing itself to be a tall, man-like figure. Thinking then that it was a human, the figure was in silhouette, he asked in Bulgarian if he'd seen any sheep pass by. When no answer was forthcoming, he asked the same question in Russian. Still, there was no answer. As he drew closer, he saw that the creature possessed a high, dome-shaped skull. Then he realized that it was an almasty. He decided to fetch his uncle to show him the almasty, but looking back, he saw it walking off into the hills, and by the time he returned with his uncle, it had gone. Whilst we were visiting museums, drinking local beverages and interviewing eyewitnesses, up in the mountains, Dave had an adventure all of his own.
Large nest found it in the mountains with bedding. Possibly almasty. Good chance there's no bones or anything in here. Goes back a long way. We don't think it's a fox or jackal because there's no skeleton bones or signs of their prey there.
This may be almasty bedding. Dave found it in a cave. It's made mainly from dwarf rhododendron. We're just going to check through it to see if there are any hairs.
No.
Do we get the gloves on?
Do you want to go and get me a pair of gloves?
I'll get through it.
Second go. So we'll have a sort of second wave. And I'll start.
Oh, it's recording now?
Какая еще сволочь, чтобы ни косточки не делать. Да, но тоже может быть. Кто? Шакал? Нет, шакал он такой же, как и сам. Понимаешь, ну кто-то не сугубый хищник.
Гриша, ты забыл. I've got a hair.
Yeah? Oh, brilliant.
Let's separate them. How many bags? Can somebody separate out the bags?
Sadly, although we recovered over a dozen hairs and got them safely back to the UK, when they were analysed by Dr. Scott Dietell, a New York forensic pathologist, they turned out to be human. Furthermore, and I'm afraid this scotches all the people who are just about to say, but we always knew that the almasty was human. It is modern human DNA and diagnostic of the people who live in that area of the Corsican Mountains. The strangest thing was that although the hair samples presumably came from a shepherd or a hunter, it's very hard to imagine at the beginning of the 21st century that a modern human belonging to the same species of us would be prepared to camp out for the night in a rather soggy bed of dwarf rhododendron leaves in a cave in the middle of nowhere. Oh well, night was strangers folk, as my mother used to say.
Ну хотя бы в общих чертах, если не будет полного сходства.
Sure. Okay.
И еще вот предупредить, кроме Рамазана, точность сопоставляем никто не знает, потому что он один единственный человек в этом районе, который общался с ними один на один.
He said that he is not the best specialist in this area, but there in Elbrus there lives an old man Ramazan who can better.
I completely understand. This is just a very rough exercise just to help us understand a little bit more.
Ну, это только способ, чтобы они могли чуть больше понять. Well,
there is no right and wrong. Tell him that.
Это не дело в том, что правильно или неправильно. Ну вот это все по тому же кругу.
Did it look like that?
Have a look through the pictures, yeah? See what you think.
Посмотрите остальные картинки и скажите нам, какую больше.
That is it.
Yes, I understand this.
No, tell him that. That's it. Tell him that's finished. That's all the
Это еще не
pictures.
все.
Which one does it most look like of those pictures? Gregory.
Ну, на какую больше похоже?
Вот это вот две больше похоже.
Это, this and
Это и это больше похоже.
and that.
So it had a face like that, yeah?
Это и это больше похоже. Ну, здесь совсем длиннее.
In this is too large breast, but in that body was shorter.
Гладко расчесанные волосы, ниже колена.
And the hairs was not so long, more worn, such worn, but not so so cool.
So it didn't have breasts
Straight.
straight. It didn't have breasts like that, but it looked
Like that, but not so large.
not so large, yeah. Understand. And its face, if we look at that, is its face like that?
А лицо было похоже на это.
Это тоже очень похоже, но такая, видимо, мужская.
Он говорит, not rather like, but not very like. Maybe that's a man.
I think what he means there is it doesn't have the facial hair around where the nose is.
Well, ask him that. Does it have the hair around there?
Оволошение лица, то есть волосы были похожи.
Похоже, но чуть-чуть шире.
On this picture, the nose is more bright, but and this part of hair is white. But as he says, maybe that's another, maybe that's a man.
The nose, what did he say about the nose? The nose on the
He
picture.
says that nose of its body, this which he found, it was more thin.
That's exactly
Yes.
that's exactly what. If you remember, that's exactly what Anatoly said. It was a human-like nose.
У них волосы как шелковые, как вот хорошо обработанные у женщин шампунем волосы бывают такие вот красивые. У них очень красивые волосы.
He says that her hair on the head was was very good as with a woman with shampoo.
Yeah, right. Very shiny. Shiny.
Long, but straight.
But straight.
For such ones.
И глаза у них красные.
He knows that the eyes, almasty eyes are red. Но вы же этого на теле не видели.
На теле не видим, но у живого красные.
When he see a leaf almasty, he saw in the darkness red eyes.
Oh, I've seen a live almasty.
Yes, I will tell you. But in a body he has not seen red eyes.
The purpose of the exercise of looking at the pictures is a very simple one. It tests credibility and it also helps us to understand what the creature is. The way it tests credibility is very simply, if I show him a big picture of a yeti like that, stuffed, and someone says, well, it looks like that, then very obviously it's very difficult to say they're telling the truth. But what we do there is, with a number of pictures, is ask the eyewitness to look at the pictures and see which one they most resemble, and from those we can learn detail.
Now the interesting feature about the eyewitness there, Sergit, the way he described it was, he talked about its head and its features being more Gigantopithecus, but he also described about how it was erect, and what we also learned was more detail about the creature. For example, that it had long hair, which was lustrous. Now, when Gregory challenged him later on about the hair being all black, he went into more detail. He said, "Oh, well, actually, that's not necessarily the case because it had bits of grey in it." So the more details he goes to, which backs up his credibility, the better it is for us. And the encouraging thing, the most encouraging thing from that exercise is he didn't fall for my Yeti pictures, which is what someone who's lying might well want to think, want us to believe that he saw. So that was a good exercise.
What's impressed me about this is the shape of the nose. There was a reconstruction of Gigantopithecus, and he said it was like that but with less facial hair and slimmer nose. It was more man-like. Now, Anatoly, another witness we said that we saw, he said that the nose was like a human's, only smaller. So almasty has a very human-like nose. I think if people were making it up, they'd try and make it more ape-like rather than giving it this humanoid nose, which says to me possibly it's, well, I've thought all along it's genus Homo.
Well, it sounded convincing, but when they got to the place where Sergit said he left the body, there was nothing to be found. Sergit promised that he'd do his best to retrieve the teeth that he had left with the local wise woman, and left us. We went to see him for some time. But it was time to travel back into town, to revisit the flesh pots of Neutrino, and to take up residence in the palatial flat which we had rented to be our base for the final section of the journey.
This is the delightful flat in Neutrino where we'll be staying for the next few days. This is going to be our base for several days. I'll just give you a little look around it. It doesn't matter. It's okay. Beautiful Neutrino. Could you get any more Eastern Bloc?
That's right. Rich, have you been on the ballerina?
I'm just going to go and have a look. I'm sure the view is breathtaking. Breathtaking view of lovely Neutrino.
The problem was, I think, that whereas Richard and I had lived in bachelor, not to say bohemian squalor for some years, I don't think the rest of the team had, and I don't think the rest of the team had seen anything like it. This flat was beyond even the worst dreams of me and Richard at our worst. It was a relief to get back out into the mountains, and the team journeyed up to a place where there had been an avalanche. Although the avalanche had happened the previous winter, the team reasoned that quite a few animals might have been killed by the avalanche, and therefore almasty might be hanging around as scavengers.
What we found here is an area of vegetation trampled down by something heavy, and a number of plants have been eaten. They've had their stems bitten through. Now, Anatoly and Alexei and Gregory all think this is too steep for wild boar to come down. 3 years ago they found something similar. This may well have been caused by an almasty.
You can eat this plant. For man's stomach that's not very good because there are too many cellulose here. But it's possible.
Получается, что у нас живет 5 видов щавелей. Щавель кисленький, щавель конский,
Не знаю как.
щавель астролистый.
Мы здесь! Курму видели тут!
A little later on, the team hears some bizarre, inhuman vocalizations from the midst of a thicket of bushes. Could this be the almasty at last? Richard's heart was beating wildly as he scurried around to the side of the thicket, trying to video everything as it happened to keep an exact record.
You bastard, you! Alexi tricking us. Bastard.
The further up the mountains we got, the wilder the terrain became. Regularly we had to cross mountain streams, and the mountain streams became wilder too. On one particularly treacherous stretch of rapids we hauled a log across to act as a bridge, but Richard lost his footing and was swept away by the torrent. For the third time in this expedition he nearly died, and would certainly have drowned or been dashed to pieces on the rocks if it had not been for Gregory's quick reactions in grabbing him. And after all of that, when they got to the avalanche, there was nothing there but the remains of a very dead cow. There were no signs of anything even slightly almasty-like. However, they could look from the mountain peak down at the beautiful vista below. Well, it would have been beautiful if it hadn't been for the very Eastern Bloc utilitarianism of the architecture of Neutrino.
Wild boars, sometimes jackals, almasty. No, they have not seen, but they know about that, especially in Gubasante and Kazgen. Any year somebody tells about meeting with almasty. That's absolutely usual for them.
Are these from the village here then?
I didn't ask, maybe from Kizgen, from Upper Baksan. There are some owners of grass.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yes.
Back in Neutrino, Gregory took us to this school where the previous summer, that's the summer of 2007, a large black-haired almasty was seen standing by this fence next to a school. It was twice as high as the fence, and it stepped over it seemingly with no real trouble and ran off. But later that evening it was reported once again in and around the school and its grounds. When a group of concerned citizens went to have a look, they found no trace of the almasty, but a big human-like footprint in the dust.
This is a building, I believe it's a hotel cum restaurant, or was a hotel cum restaurant, fallen into disrepair. Not nearly as old as it looks, I don't think. But Sergit has told us that the almasty is supposed to hang around here, so we're going to stake it out here tonight. And it is quite an amazing place. Sad that it's fallen into decay, because it would have been a wonderful place once to stay and to eat. It's quite magnificent in its prime, I'm sure. Only trouble is you get people wandering around here, and also cows. So I'm hoping they're not going to be setting off the camera traps.
Wandering around the deserted and semi-derelict castle was a strange experience for Richard, because it was both a symbol of the grandeur of Bulgaria's past and a living example in the downturn of Bulgaria's economy since the fall of communism. But everywhere he looked, the almasty stared back, because in all of the expeditions which Richard and the boys had done, this is the first one where a 21st century society has a real, live, bona fide apeman living alongside our own modern relatives. Over the previous weeks, Gregory had told the team of several incidents which both intrigued and disturbed them. One story involved a farmer whose savage Corsica shepherd dogs were going wild. On opening the door of his house one night, he was alarmed to find a young almasty apparently trying to escape the dogs. It punched the man in the shoulder and knocked him down. The creature ran away, pursued by the dogs. The dogs later returned with blood on their fangs.
The inside of the central tower. If someone had the time and the money to do this, it'd be a great place for tourists to stay. As it is, I'm hoping it's a great place for the almasty to stay.
On another occasion, an adult almasty approached a house and was attacked by a big dog. The almasty used a club to bludgeon the dog to death. It then entered the house and stole a large Bulgarian cheese.
There are these really great holes there. We have to be careful we don't fall down those at 3 o'clock in the morning.
The strength of the almasty seems to far exceed that of any modern human. On one occasion, one was observed fighting a bear. The almasty punched the bear, which tumbled over and then retreated. Gregory thinks it was a young bear, as an adult male would be more than a match, even for an almasty. Indeed, almasty hair has been found in bear droppings in the Pamir Mountains. He's also been told of almasty remains from a specimen killed by wolves. One man saw an almasty close to his house, and, worried about it stealing food, he threw a stone at it. The almasty retreated behind the house, and soon after a huge rock was hurled right over the house, narrowly missing the man. In the morning it took 2 large men to lift it. Another man struck an almasty that had entered his house. The creature hit him back and knocked him fully 15 feet. Anatoly had told us that there were in fact 2 man-like creatures in the Caucasus. The almasty is the smaller and more human-looking of the 2, and the much bigger, more ape-like matseri. The matseri more closely resembles the larger type of yeti and the Sasquatch.
It's just dusk now, and we've put out the camera traps and some bait. All we've got to do now is wait and hope the almasty comes down from the forest and into this ruined restaurant in front of the camera traps, or close enough to us so we can take a picture of it. You couldn't hope for a more atmospheric or spooky looking surrounding. This is straight out of Doctor Who or Hammer Horror. Weird empty buildings, imposing mountains, and a possible ape man on his way. Blair Witch has got nothing on us. There's the towering twilight.
But it wasn't just a magnificently gothic spooky location. A few nights before, there had been an almasty incident there. A band of armed policemen had been camping one night when the air was rent with the sound of an inhuman screaming. The policemen fled, but we weren't going to.
Spooky old tower, a crumbling old restaurant at the base of the mountains, hopefully haunted by an ape man. Right, it's morning. We saw and heard absolutely nothing except for bats and rodents here. The camera traps have picked up a hell of a lot of movement, but I'm inclined to think it's all going to be very small animals, but we've got to take them home and check them out. Spooky place, but no almasty. Well, not tonight anyway.
At first the camera trap pictures showed nothing. Simply bats, rodents, or the movement of clouds. But then, what's this? A strange, hulking, man-like figure lurching towards the camera. Could it be the almasty? No, it's Richard, just coming to check the batteries.
Okay, could you ask this gentleman to give me his name first, please?
Не могли бы вы назвать свое имя, чтобы в Англии знали?
Имя, фамилия?
Имя, фамилия.
Ölmezov.
Ölmezov Ramazan.
Okay, and can you ask him when and where he saw the almasty?
Вы можете повторить то же, что вы мне рассказывали? Где и когда вы видели?
Это 2 года тому назад, в летнее время, вечером темно. Я его видел.
Так 2 или 3 года назад?
Да.
2?
2 года.
Now he says 2 years ago I asked him 2 or 3, he says 2. 2 years ago in summertime, dark evening, almost night, I have seen.
And whereabouts?
Ну где?
Здесь, ну вот, я оттуда не могу показать. По пасу, там тумбочка стояли здесь. А сейчас сам материал.
Ну потом, может, выйдем на то покажем. In this yard, after this dialogue, I will show you the place. In some metros.
Yeah. And what did the creature look like?
Я выйду покажу.
На что она была похожа?
Ну, как могу рассказать. Вот темный вот.
Romolga Kolmasov and his wife were a delightful couple who invited us into their house and gave us tea, bread, cheese and delicious homemade yogurt. Romolga had seen a juvenile almasty in his backyard only 2 years before. One night someone threw a pebble at his window. Thinking it was his son come to visit, he called out telling him that the door was open. There was no answer, but sometime later someone knocked at the window. On investigation he saw what he at first thought was a sack of wool in the corner of the yard. Then he realised it was a young almasty. He didn't get a good look at the face, but he said it was hair covered with a pale human-like hands. It made gestures as if it wanted food. Romolga brought it some bread which it also took. It then made gestures that Romolga interpreted as meaning that it had a friend who also wanted food. He brought a second piece of bread and left it in the yard. He saw the shadow of the first almasty leaving. Then, when he went back inside, in the morning, the second piece of bread was gone. Romolga's wife had seen an almasty in 1955 at the age of 14. She and her family had been deported to Kazakhstan. She had been invited to a relative's house. Upon getting there, she found a number of children huddled in a corner crying. When she inquired what was the matter, one of them told her to peek out of the wooden shutters that covered the glassless window. In the yard was a weird creature slightly taller than herself. From her vantage point, peeking through a crack, she couldn't see its legs. The upper part was covered in hair. The hair hung down, obscuring the face, chest and upper arms. Her description put me in mind of cousin It from the Addams family. It was slowly moving its arms up and down in the manner of a child imitating a bird. It made a whistling noise just like a bird, and from time to time it paused to pick up mud and sling it at the wall and shutters. It was still there when she left some time later. She found it odd that such a crazy topic could be of interest to us.
We're on our way up to some caves near the town of Neutrino, where apparently there are some strange human-like bones that might just belong to a relic hominid. I'm going to bag them up, take them back to the UK and get Professor Brian Sykes to have a butcher's at them and take a look at the DNA.
On the way up the mountain, we stopped at these extraordinary outcroppings of rock. These rock formations look for all the world like the old-fashioned honeycomb centres of chocolates, at least the sort of chocolates you could get when Richard and I were children. The team rested a while and looked down at the enormous expanse of forest and hillside below them. Truly, this is a magnificent country. It was here that we saw the only snake we encountered on the whole trip. I'd love to say that this was one of the giants, one of the intriguing reptilian behemoths that we had been told about ever since our arrival in the area. But it wasn't. It was only a baby, and it was a normal-sized colobrid of some sort. These little caves along the way produced some intriguing findings.
We've been searching a number of these small nest-like sites in the caves, and we've just come up with several large dark hairs which we've bagged up. We sent off to the professor. They look quite interesting. They seem to have medullas on them, so hopefully they'll yield some interesting DNA. Gregory has just unearthed what looks like some possible finger bones in this small cave here. Found some large footprints in the mud near a range of small caves. They're not gigantic, like a Yeti or a Sasquatch. They're large. They could be from a shepherd who's been up here. They're too really not detailed enough to tell. I'm a size 9. I'm a size 9 and they're not too much bigger than me. So they're probably human. If they're almasty, they're a small one.
Gregory gave us some interesting insights into the feeding habits of the almasty.
Expedition, I was for 4 days eating only cricket and was good.
For 4 days you ate nothing but cricket?
Yes, I was not. I tried. Is it possible for a creature with my weight to live only
and
such?
Was it successful?
Yes, I believe, and there was nothing. I stopped not because there was not unsuccessful, but because it was successful. I understand.
Yeah. What do they taste like?
Huh?
What do they taste like?
My English is not so rich too.
Do they taste good or bad?
Not bad, not bad.
Did you cook them?
Sometimes cooked, sometimes without.
Yeah. And the almasty eats this plant and the crickets.
It eats the root of the plant.
The root of the plant.
The root of the plant.
And the crickets.
No.
The almasty eats the root of the plant. Yes.
Yes. And maybe some parts of this.
Did you ever eat the root?
Have I eaten
the root? Yes.
That's Not smack. That's not good.
Not good.
It's possible, but
Not good for people.
there is so-called молодило. A point with молодило, something that made you younger. Of course, that didn't, but there is many water. You can eat that if you want to drink.
Ah, it contains water.
Vitamin C.
Like cactus.
Yes, also.
You can eat it.
Try it.
You can
Just film it. Just point it out where it's all.
in some places, maybe this is bigger. In some places there are very many such points, and they are more large as a small apple size.
Not unpleasant, but rather tasteless.
Point to the plant.
Okay, a lot of water in it.
So you can during a lot of times in absolutely dry place drinking
Get all your
this,
water from this.
yes, and eating, for example, crickets or centers.
Crickets and this little plant, what's it called again, Gregory? Plant?
I didn't try to take all water from this. But when I ate crickets, I drink normal water.
What's the plant called again?
Russian name is молодило, молодость, younger, youth, a plant with that make you more younger.
Wow. A diet of crickets and this.
Yummy.
Better than McDonald's.
Russian names of crickets are кузнечик, Smith.
Smith.
Yes. The sound.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah, I see. These are human-like bones in a, not so much a cave, more of a small crevice. Now, $100,000 question is, are these human or are they almasty? Hopefully Dr. Sykes can, Professor Sykes rather, can help us sort that out.
Well, I am ready to dig them. Where's my...
Right, do you want to get, can you get a snap from
Right, so what's the history behind these little chaps?
These are human-like bones that may belong to an almasty that were found in this crevice, and we're going to fish them out and send them to Professor Sykes for analysis.
Zoom in a fraction. One foot distance, I think.
seems to me there is no need in the largest, but small and maybe knife, and really, as I seen, so small.
Yeah, I can fish those out with my hands, those if you like.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
As I see, there are bones here.
Yes, yes, I
Also.
see. Yeah.
Well,
I can easily get in there if you want.
if you are ready, you can.
Yeah. Do you want to film this, mate? Just keep it running, one of you. It doesn't really matter who. It's running at the minute because we keep.
The bones appeared to be human, of an old lady and about 200 years old. However, we retrieved them anyway. Why, you may ask? Why not just give them a decent burial? Well, our main sponsor of the expedition had been Professor Brian Sykes and his company Oxford Ancestors. They wanted us to take genetic material from the local people to see if we could find any traces of the Neanderthal genes inside the regional genome of these people. But this had proved impossible. They were just simply too primitive, and for some reason which, not being theologians, we don't understand, these relatively unsophisticated and very devout Muslims found the idea of us taking DNA samples in the form of inside-mouth skin swabs completely abhorrent, and we wanted to respect their feelings. But the old babushka, who had died in this cave several hundred years ago, was in no position to complain and no position to argue, and she, alone amongst her people, especially coming from an era when the Carbadino people were even less genetically contaminated than they are today, could possibly provide the answer that we have all been looking for. She died alone and friendless in this cave hundreds of years ago, but whoever she was, she just might provide the answer to one of the greatest riddles of modern science.
There's a hoopoo.
It's a I don't know what's a hoopoo.
A hoopoo.
Yeah, orange and black stripe.
Yeah.
There we go. Hoopoo.
Get them in Turkey a lot.
They hardly ever see them in Britain. Once in a blue moon. I've never seen one before. Oh, and off it goes, but I've got it on tape.
Well, you've seen it anyway.
Yeah. Smashing. Well, Adam, whilst we're here, tell us a little bit about last night, if you can keep your eyes open, mate.
Well, I was awake all night. What we did was we went to this barn. It's the scene of a reputed triple murder, and we decided to do a night stakeout. Basically, at the back of the barn there are two paths coming down, and that's where the almasty is reputed to come. So what we did was we had two camera traps, so we set the two camera traps up at the back of the barn area. We also put some red wine out and some honey. Meanwhile, Anatoly, who was with Dave and I, brewed some honey and red wine together to send the aromas out. About between 10 and 11 in the evening, Anatoly was on one side of the barn and we were on the other, and he heard what he said was an almasty. Now I didn't hear the sound, so I can't verify that, but he certainly came back quite intense. About 4 in the morning I heard a wow sound. What that could be I don't know, it could be anything. But it was, you know, it was exciting. One of the things that really strikes is just how extreme the cold is here during the night. It was absolutely freezing. What we're going to do tonight is go back using a similar rationale, maybe set one of the camera traps up a bit farther back. Richard's going to be joining us this time, so we'll have more camera traps to set up, and we'll see if we have any success. We didn't have any success this time, but I've learned a lot more about the site, so I'm pretty confident that if it comes down I'll be able to capture its image this time.
We were to return to the UK in a few days, but there was just time for a major stakeout of the abandoned farmhouse. But first, the team received a real body blow.
Yesterday, Sergit, the supposed almasty witness, who was supposed to have found the body at the top of the mountain and who said he had a tooth for us, came around to the flat we were renting at Neutrino with quite a strange story. He initially said he had given the tooth to a friend of his who was using it as a magic charm. We went to see this woman and she said her daughter had the tooth at her flat. The flat was searched and they couldn't find the tooth. If it was meant to be something as important as a charm, it seems to be that they were treating it rather poorly. Anyway, they said they'd carry on looking for it. Yesterday Sergit came to the flat and told us that the spirit of the dead almasty had made the tooth vanish by magic, and it had made the body at the top of the mountain vanish by magic, but he had an almasty hair and it was from the queen of all the almasties, and he knew that because jinn or Islamic spirits had told him so. The alleged hair looked like a piece of vegetable fibre to me, so I think the whole story of the almasty body is nothing but a delusion.
So it was all or nothing really, with a large chunk of the expedition having been devoted to the hunt for Sergit's carcass, which turned out never to have existed in the first place. A hell of a lot was riding on our last night. A night in a justifiably haunted farmhouse.
This barn's got quite a history to it. Back in about 1973, so the story goes, it was owned by an old man and his wife. The relatives of the old man realised that he'd got money stored somewhere in the house and he was going to use the money to buy something. They wanted to get their hands on the money, so a group of 3 of them came around. There was an altercation and the old man was killed. The old man's wife then stabbed the murderer to death, and the other 2 felons then stabbed the old woman to death and run off into the mountains and were subsequently caught by the police. It's been derelict ever since, but occasionally people hang around in it. In 2005, several shepherds were here drinking when a large male almasty came onto the veranda, grabbed the hold of one of the men and lifted him out of the way like he was a doll, and then apparently ran off into the night. It was possibly attracted by the smell of food and drink, and that's why we're baiting the place. And this apparently is the route that the almasty takes down from the mountains when it comes to the shack.
Trigger there.
So we set up the camera traps and put them in what we thought were ideal locations. Gregory baited the trap with a dead sussex, and Anatoly brewed up a delicious concoction of red wine and honey, the fumes of which were apparently guaranteed to attract the almasty. And then we settled down to wait.
Last night, Adam and I may have come within a hair's breadth of seeing one of these things. We heard a sort of deep, guttural sort of noise, and then something moved past the door on the veranda, which was slightly ajar. We rushed out with our cameras, but we could find nothing. Was it an almasty? I don't know. Gregory is inclined to think the noise was an eagle owl, although it does sound very like a recording I've heard of an alleged Sasquatch vocalisation in North America. If there was an almasty on the veranda, then it moved as quickly and quietly as a cat. But we can but hope. This is the balcony where something might have walked along. Adam and I were in this room. So was Dave, but he was asleep. We were in this room when something walked past the door. The door was very slightly ajar. We heard a strange vocalisation, something moved past it. We rushed out with our cameras, but whatever it was had gone. But it was big enough, tall enough to block out all the light to the top of this door. So it must have been about 7 feet tall.
And then it was over. Our sojourn in Mother Russia had come to an end. We were sad to leave this strange and beautiful land, which was both so familiar and so completely and utterly foreign. It's part of Europe, and bits of it felt like walking across Dartmoor. But it's also part of the ancient empire of Russia, the land of the Tsars, the land of the Soviets, and the land of the Russian bear. The land of Ivan the Terrible, Boris Godunov, Stalin and Lenin. Not to forget the land of Rasputin the Mad Monk, who may not have been the lover of the Russian queen, but was certainly, as the song says, a most outrageous man. So does the almasty exist? Well, we believe so. Let's face it, both Gregory and Anatoly have seen it, as well as all the other people that we have met over the last 3 weeks. It seems smaller and more man-like than the classic Yeti or Sasquatch. Gregory thinks that it may be a surviving strain of Homo erectus, but as far as we know, however, no fossil skulls of this species show the distinctive domed shape. The almasty could, of course, be a descendant of Homo erectus. This species begat many others, such as Homo heidelbergensis, Homo floresiensis, Neanderthal man, and our own species. Perhaps it also had another descendant, one with a domed head, a coat of black or grey hair, big, powerful, strong, and adapted perfectly for forest and mountain dwelling. The almasty does seem very adaptable. Gregory says that it can live anywhere that its ecological twin, the brown bear, can, and we see no reason to disagree with him. A few weeks later, war broke out in the region, and it looks as if it might be some years before we're able to return, but return we shall, and armed with the information that we gathered on this, our first expedition, we shall be even better equipped to solve the riddle of mankind's closest relative.
Wow, Minerali Vodi Airport. Not nearly as nasty as everybody makes out. In fact, it looks perfectly civilised.
Richard, I think we're probably the most uncivilised things here.
Yeah, probably.
To Kabardino-Balkaria, in search of a man that is hairier, looking for almasty bones and teeth, with Richard, Chris, Adam and Dave and Keith. Falling down the mountainside, half the party nearly died. Cryptozoology calls, we must obey.